Hello everyone, my name is Gabriel for HotCars.com, and this is the 2021 Lexus IS350 Fsport with the handling package. And the first thing that's going to strike you about this car is its new redesigned exterior. Now I'm going to give you a full tour around it and we're going to take it out for a spin. But before we do any of that, I want to make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel because it helps us out a ton. So if you remember the IS before this major stylistic refresh, you'll remember that it also had the big front grille and the sharp LED headlights. Now the difference with the 2021 model is that everything is kind of turned up to 11. And I mean that because the grille itself is sharper than before. These headlights, you know, they come in right from the fender all the way to the bumper, and they're sort of embedded in here. I love how sharp this LED running headlight is. Overall, everything here has a sharp edge because you have this sort of edge that ends right here, another edge, and then an edge with the grille. Everything about this design tries to be extremely sharp. Now we have a gloss black front grille. You also have a functional air duct in here and here. This will help to cool your brakes when you're on the road, and here also to add a little bit of air, sort of channel the air in through the bumper, which I think is a really cool detail. Now in terms of the hood, we have a very strong design line that carries through here. It makes the hood look almost like it has like a little bit of a bulge going on, but overall I think it's a very nice looking car. And I think Lexus finally got the design together that, you know, before this major refresh, you know, I didn't really love the IS, but now I certainly do. Now when looking along the sides of the IS350, you're going to first notice these 19-inch forged BBS wheels. Now these are, they come within the handling package. You're paying just over $4,000 for that, but you are also getting adaptive suspension and you're getting a limited slip differential in the rear as well. Now you're also going to notice this is a silver car, but it does have gloss black accents on the mirror caps and on the side skirts as well. There's a little bit of chrome throughout. I don't totally mind it. I wish it was gloss black like everything else to really tie things in together and give it a really sporty look, but oh well, we can't have everything. Now, the sides of the IS350, the design isn't too crazy. It's kind of sort of chiseled enough to be exciting, and it does have a sporty look, especially when you're considering a daily driver. Now looking at the rear, there are a couple of things that stand out, namely this horizontal LED that goes the entire width of the rear end. It's something typical that we're seeing lately in the auto industry, but I think it looks nice here, especially when it lights up at night. It really gives the IS a very sort of distinct kind of look. Now, the next sort of major portion is this gloss black diffuser, and it's enormous. Now, typically a diffuser would end right down here, but Lexus opted to make a huge piece. Now, the benefit of that is that I think it creates a nice bit of contrast between the silver and the gloss black elements. You also have gloss black on the tail light, and to kind of top things off, you have a carbon fiber rear lip. Now, it's the only piece of carbon fiber I've been able to find on this car. Now, the fact that this is carbon and not gloss black, I kind of would have wanted maybe the mirror caps or the side skirts or something else in carbon to kind of tie things in together, but it is a nice little touch in the rear. Now, my only drawback in the rear end has to be these tailpipes because they are tiny and they're very sunken in. That's one drawback, I think, of this massive diffuser, is that it makes the exhaust pipes actually look very small, and they're very sunken in there. I think given the sort of sporty edge that this car kind of carries, some bigger exhaust tips would have gone a long way. But overall, in the rear end design, I think it's kind of intricate, kind of sharp, and I think it's very stylish. So if you've seen an IS before, this interior won't exactly rock your world because it's sort of very typical of what we've seen from Lexus in recent years, but there are some major strong points of this interior, starting with the color, because you'll notice that it is red. You have red dashboard, red door inserts, but you have these black elements up top, and Lexus even gave us red stitching throughout to really kind of tie things together. Now, one of the bigger improvements for this model is you have a much larger screen. It still features sort of Lexus's normal infotainment system, which you control with a trackpad down here. I still don't love the trackpad because it's easy to make mistakes often and not pick exactly what you want. The benefit of this screen, however, is that it is touch. So if you want to bypass the trackpad completely, you could definitely do that. You know, in a world where manufacturers use the screen for your AC controls, it kind of be difficult to use at higher speeds. Having a nice little row of buttons is a welcome sight. Your temperature, you have these little sliders where you can pick if you want it hot or cold. It's actually, intuitive. I thought when I first saw that I was a little skeptical of it, but it's actually very, very intuitive to use. You have your sport mode selector down here. You can go between eco, normal, sport, and sport plus. You also have a snow mode. You have your traction control. Obviously, this particular model has cooled and heated seats, which I think are a great addition. Overall, the sort of dashboard layout I think is very, very nice. It looks very refined, and everything in here seems very well built. Everything seems very well screwed together. This steering wheel is very chunky. It feels reminiscent of what you get in the LC500, which I think is nice. And also you have a digital dashboard. Now that's not new for the IS, but it's interesting to see how well it's aged. And this car was kind of a little bit ahead of the curve, where some of its competitors were still offering analog gauges, but this digital instrument cluster still looks great. And even when you switch it between to Sport Plus, the gauge itself also changes. You get this little white layout, which I think is very, very cool. It's configurable. Overall, I think the interior of the IS is very nice. And previously, you would see a Lexus offering would be sort of more value oriented than the equivalent German car. But I think build quality, everything, it's definitely, top tier. It's definitely up there with the best that Germany can offer. All right, so it's time we take the 2021 Lexus IS350 for a drive. So foot on the brake, push to start. The engine kind of roars into life. It does have like a nice little hum to it. It's not loud by any means, but I love all the little animations you get in the screen and in the dash when you get ready to go. There's a little warning message there. But basically, as we talked about earlier, 8-speed automatic transmission. Put that sucker into drive. Let's put it in Sport Plus because why not? Also, remember, this car has the handling pack, which is an optional extra. You get the limited slip differential, the adaptive suspension, all of that good stuff. But I have purposely parked us next to a highway on-ramp so we could see what that engine does when you unleash it. Now, one thing that you'll notice when you immediately get behind the wheel is the fact that you can hear a little bit of that engine, but it's not exhaust noise, what you're hearing. A lot of it is induction noise when you put your foot down. I'll give you a little example. See, a lot of that sound is coming from the front. Now that we're here, let's just let it rip. See, it's a good sound. And once you get at the top of the RPM range, it really does pick up because that's where all of your peak power is. Remember, we're talking about a naturally aspirated V6 engine with 311 horsepower and 280 pounds-feet of torque. Now, while those figures don't seem all that bad on the surface, it's because they're not. 311 horsepower for a car that weighs around 3,800 pounds is fairly respectable, because this isn't like your sort of sporty sedan that you're gonna go take to the track and enjoy. This is your daily driver. You just want a daily driver that's a bit quicker, a bit more, offers a little bit more excitement for every day. Now, the problem is that the IS350 lives in a turbocharged world where its competitors from Genesis, BMW, Mercedes, they all have turbochargers. So they all have that sort of shove down low with the torque that this car just doesn't have. And the result is that this car feels a little bit slow. It definitely could use an extra 50 or so horsepower to really get it up there. And it's not too bad because you still have power on offer. The thing is that all that power is at the top of the RPM range. So if you really want to get going with this thing, you have to floor it and then wait until the revs get all the way up there and when you really do get moving along. Now, I mentioned earlier 8-speed automatic transmission. I think the transmission itself, again, is very much tuned towards daily drivability. It's very smooth, it's very quiet, it's very, out of the way in most situations. However, when you do put your foot down, it can be a little bit slow to react, but it really does depend on the situation. But I'll show you right now. I'm on the highway. I want to sort of speed up, put my foot down. I feel like I would want it to kick a little higher in the RPM range to get that power. I think the fact that it kind of puts you, just before the power band, it leaves you feeling like you put your foot down and it doesn't really get like that immediate reaction that you'd want. But again, we're talking about trade-offs because, would you rather have a forced induction engine that's really powerful and really responsive, Or, you know, would you rather have the naturally aspirated one, but it has incredible reliability? So again, it really comes down to the pros and cons and what you're looking for from a daily driver. For me personally, you know, you don't drive on a daily basis flooring it everywhere and, you know, going to the red line all the time. So it's really not a huge deal at all. And from a daily driver perspective, it's very smooth, it's very quiet. Now, talking about exciting, let's talk about how the IS350 drives, because I think this is probably the best part about the car. Because, you know, I'm surprised at how well this car handles. Now, granted, this one does have the handling pack with adaptive suspension, you get a limited slip diff, you get those awesome forged wheels, yada, yada, yada. But overall, I've been surprised at how agile this car feels, despite weighing in around 3,800 pounds. You know, in the sort of modern landscape of cars, that's not too heavy, but if you're looking at sort of things that are in the sporty side of things, that is, you know, that's pretty chunky. Now, additionally, the brakes, you get bigger brakes, which are great. The brakes, I think, are fantastic. You know, you get great performance from them, and I've noticed that they don't really tend to fade all that much, you know, even when you're kind of driving them hard for a little while. I mean, everything on this car from a handling perspective feels really, really finely tuned. Now, I'll go out on a limb and say that this was done because Lexus knew that it was developing the V8 version of this car with that extra power that I'm kind of yearning for in this IS350. Because, you know, these handling dynamics with the power of a V8 is probably going to be like that sort of special recipe to give this car exactly what it's missing. Now, from an interior perspective, if you can hear around me, there is a little bit of road noise going on. You also get a good amount of wind noise at speed. Now, it's not intrusive by any way once you got the stereo going. It's really like, you know, just kind of fades in the background. It's not really all that noticeable. But you do get a little bit of road noise, especially on roads that are less than ideal. You know, that really does kind of come through the cabin, but it's not intrusive in any way. It's not something that, you know, you're going to be thinking about on a daily basis or sort of like dealing with on a daily basis. Now, the thing you will be dealing with on a daily basis is this interior, which is very, very, very nice. The quality in here is fantastic. I love the way that, you know, this red with black interior. I like the contrast of the two colors. The overall, also the quality of the leather, everything feels nicely, you know, nice and soft, plush, but very high quality. You know, something I really love about every single Lexus that I've driven so far is that they're really, really well put together. There's no weird rattles or noises or anything like that. You know, they seem to be built to a very, very high standard. And, you know, that's kind of, you know, not unusual for a Toyota. A lot of the Toyotas that I've driven, Lexus, you know, models that I've driven are built very, very well. And the same goes for this car. And, you know, what's surprising to me is particularly because, you know, I get to drive a lot of different cars for my job. And, you know, I've been in some much, much more expensive cars that don't feel as well built. I think overall, as a sort of package, as a luxury car for $55,000, as much as this one costs, I think it's a good buy. I feel like when you have that sort of Lexus dependability, it makes it a little easier to justify, you know, that price tag, because you know that even if you spend $55,000 on this car, you'll know that it'll last you a very, very long time. So if you're on the fence about the IS, you know, you could also go with lower trim levels. You don't need, if you don't want to, you know, the sort of sportiness, you don't have to opt for the handling package. You don't have to get the 350. You can get a lower trim model, and you're still going to get excellent build quality and, you know, the things that we've kind of come to expect from Lexus at this point. So in the end, while I like the IS350 and how it handles, I think my true love is going to be that V8 variant. So make sure you stick around, because we'll be driving that at some point in the near future. But until then, the IS350 is still a good contender. So there we have it, the 2021 Lexus IS350 Fsport. Is it an all-out performer? Not quite. I feel like the engine could use a little bit more power. However, you are getting a spectacular handling car, especially on a daily driving scenario, because you're not giving up too much with the handling package. It's still extremely comfortable. It also has to be said that you are getting the quality and reliability you'd expect from a Lexus, which is great. It's kind of what the brand has been known for, you know, the past couple of decades. And overall, as a daily driver that sort of has a sporty edge but isn't uncomfortable, the IS350 is a great contender, and it definitely should be on your radar. So with that, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again very soon.